Welcome to Obsidian Tutorials.com. Let's learn how to use the tool. Alright, g'day guys, and welcome back to Obsidian Tutorials.com, where today we're going to be having a look at Obsidian Leaflet. Obsidian Leaflet is a plugin by Javelin, who's an excellent developer in the fantasy realms for us. He's basically creating a whole heap of the TTRPG plugins, and he creates this plugin called Leaflet that allows us to basically add maps to our notes, and then add pins to those maps, and then basically link those pins to other content. Here's an example. Alright, so this is my Forgotten Realms map that I've got in my 5th edition vault, and you can see here that I've got a map, alright, of the Sword Coast, and as I scroll in you can see that I've got all of these pins for the different towns and the different locations, and as we come through you can actually see that this content is linked to different notes that allow me to keep track of what's actually happening in these places. Now this is a very easy plugin to use. It does have a little bit of syntax that you need to learn, and depending on how much functionality you want from the plugin, there's a little bit more that you have to do if you want to do some more advanced things. And some of the more advanced things basically includes how to actually measure travel from one location to another. Here you can see I can alt click and then alt click and alt click, and I can basically get a determination of how many miles it is between those clicks, which is really handy. Something else that I really like about this plugin is you can actually make it so your pins appear at different zoom levels. As you can see here, when I'm zoomed out, I'm seeing regional pins. It's showing me forests and capital cities. But then as I zoom in, you can see as I get to that next level, you see a whole lot of other pins pop up into view, and it lets me see the detail. And I find that fantastic because as I'm sort of moving around at this level, I don't need to see all the detail that would be further in that zoom level. All right. And of course, for those people who want to be able to zoom and just go, I want to click on this map and then click on that map, you can link your pins to a note that contains a map that you can then click that contains a note that has a map, and you're right, you just basically keep clicking through different notes that have leaflet in them if you want to keep zooming in. It won't give you that Google Maps view, you know, that view where you scroll from all the way out in space all the way down to the street view. All right, and the reason for that is obviously that Google don't just use one map, they use millions of maps basically. They drive around and take screenshots, they take with satellites around the planet. I don't know a single cartographer on the planet who's got enough time to do that with a fantasy world, right? To actually create the different layers of every single view as you scroll in that would allow you to go from space through a street, right? That's just crazy amount of work. So the idea is you take a regional map, you link it to a note that has a city map, you link that to a note that has a building map, you link that note to a basement map, for example. And that way you can click through different layers. All right, so that's what the plugin is, that's what it does. Let's jump in now and see how to set it up. Now, before we dive into this next section, I just want to have a bit of a message for my Patreon supporters. They get access to my Patreon vault, and I just wanted to let you know that the vault includes this, right? So I'm going to go through now and show you how to actually set this plugin up and use this plugin. But for a large chunk of you, you can skip the next step. Right, if you just go and put a new note in and press Alt-E, that will trigger the templates view. And if you type map, you can see insert map, simplified template comes up, and you will notice that that is the next step that I'm about to walk through, so you can skip ahead on the video. All right, now for the rest of you, let's go ahead and get this plugin set up. We're going to click the cog down in the bottom left. We're going to come to Community Plugins. We're going to make sure that restricted mode is turned off, which allows us to install community plugins. Click the Browse button, and from there we're going to do a search for Leaflet. Leaflet by Jeremy Valentine comes up, all right, and we click the Install and we click the Enable button. Now, usually I would provide advice that says go in and read the README for every plugin as you install it. And it's good advice. You should certainly do it. All right. The plugin has a great README. It shows you how to do a lot of stuff. But I will say this. This plugin has a lot of advanced stuff that 95% of the users do not use. Okay. Most of us use the same template to insert maps every single time. And I would say a large chunk of this never comes up. There are things in here that people just do not play with. Tile servers, I think I've seen 2 people play with. GeoJSON, I think I've seen two people interested in playing with it, but I don't think I've actually ever seen anyone who's actually made a proper GeoJSON map yet. All right, so there's a lot of complexity in here. I'm saying this so you don't get scared. All right, because reading through this, it's quite a bit, and I'm just here to let you know that you don't need it. Keep watching this video, and we'll jump in how to set this up. All right, now one other thing that we actually need to really make use of Obsidian Leaflet and make it easy to use is a core plugin called Templates. All right, it comes with Obsidian. It's probably on by default. All right, to set up templates, you need to hit the options button and just make sure that this folder is defined. It doesn't have to be this specific folder. You can add any folder you like, but you need to have a folder in your vault where your templates go. Okay, and in this video, we're going to be creating a template that goes in that folder. So create a folder and then set the name of that folder in here. All right, and that's where you put your templates. Now, beyond that, something else that it's important is a hotkey. I always use a hotkey to trigger my templates. So in here, you can type template. All right, and if we come down and we can see templates, insert template. So Alt plus T will trigger template. All right, and we can put that into our vault. All right, so go ahead and do that. All right, now that we've done that, what we're going to do is create a new template that we put into our vault that we then trigger with the template hotkey to insert a map in any node that we want. Now, the easiest way to do this is to actually come over to my website. All right, obsidianttrpgtutorials.com. All right, come here to plugin tutorials. Come down here to the, where is it? The TTRPG World Builder plugins. All right, and here you can find the link for the Fantasy Maps section, which has the Obsidian Leaflet link. All right, so that's going to take you to the tutorial on how to do this. All right, and this is just a page with a bit of a section on what the plugin does. It's going to have links to this video, bit of a hint here for the Patreon supporters on how to trigger this template. But specifically, the one thing you need to worry about is this pre-requirement here. So it's got plugin metabind. So we click that and we go open Obsidian, and that will open up your last opened vault, allowing you to do the install and the enable. It's actually not the last vault I had open because I was playing with this one. But yeah, basically click that button and install that plugin in your vault. So if you don't want to install it through the link, you can certainly just go back through the cogs and go settings, community plugin, browse, search for metabind. All right, it's by Moritz Jung, aka Lemons. Go install and do the enable. All right, once you've got that done, we need to come back here and you can see that we've basically got the template. All right, so what we do is we copy that template and we go back to Obsidian. All right, we're going to right click on our templates folder and go new note. We're going to call it whatever we want. Insert leaflet template. All right, and then in here, we're going to paste the template. Now, mine is just doing something funny there. The first time I pasted it, I don't know why. So I just deleted everything and did it again. All right, so now we have the template in our vault. We can see that we've got properties, we've got a quick calculator, and we've got the map. All right. Now, yours probably won't have a working map, keeping in mind that I have got mine configured for my Patreon vault, and my Patreon vault has the map inside of the vault, so therefore it renders. When you see this, it's actually probably going to say an error message because you don't actually have access to that map inside of your vault. All right, so that's what that is. All right, so let's jump in and figure out how to configure this. Okay, so we've gone ahead and we've created the template. We're now ready to start using it. We basically need to create a new note. All right, that new note can be anything. All right, so this is a new location. Let's call this Skull Island. All right, we're gonna make a world called Skull Island. Okay, this is my island where the skulls pile up. All right. This could be any note. All right, you can basically insert this template into any note is the benefit of it. So what we do is we press Alt-T, we type map, and we go insert map, simplified template. Now the name here doesn't matter, by the way. This is the name the Patreon vault has in it. The one above is the one we just created for the purposes of this video. I can't have two files with the same name, so we've got a different one. That's it. Same content. All right, we press enter, And basically now that adds all of the content of the template into this note. As you can see, it's still called Skull Island. This is my island where the skulls pile up, and I put it in underneath this, and then it's basically copied in the quick calculator. It's copied in the example map. All right, and then up the top, you can see it's got some properties. All right, so let's just break down and have a quick look at the actual source of this. Okay, this is the actual important bit. This is the leaflet syntax code block that basically tells you this is the map. This is what I want you to display in the plugin. We've got some sizes, we've got some zoom details, but this is effectively leaflet. This section here is a calculator that I've provided to make it easier for you to actually do the maths to set the bottom bit up. All right, it's not difficult maths in any way, shape or form. And then that basically stores data in the properties of the note. So the calculator is using some of these values to basically figure out the maths behind what's going on. All right, so that's the nuts and bolts of the actual template. All right, if we go back into our render mode, we can expand our quick calculator and we can see we've got some import fields that we basically do. And then as we fill out this template, basically we start to get different details popping up, all right, in the calculator. All right, but let's just ignore that for a second. First, we need to step through, well, how do we add a map to leaflet? All right, so that's the first step. Let's focus on these first two lines. The first step is we need a map. Now, here is one I prepared earlier. I've got my Island of Screams. Now, the Island of Screams is a map that I've made myself, just with a bit of a world that I've created. And you see here, what I'm doing is I'm basically, I'm just adding a link, all right, to that image inside of this note. Now, you can get your images into the vault in multiple ways, right? You might copy and paste it from the internet straight into a note, all right? You can do that. You can just copy something, paste, it will paste that in. And obviously, your assets will usually go to your assets folder, depending on how you have it set up. Or you could basically type your square bracket, all right, and bring up the name. All right, whatever way works for you, doesn't matter. The point being, I like to have a link here initially, all right? Now, the reason for this, you'll see in a minute, but if we start here and we go the Island of Screams, and we have a look at the image line, all right, and it says link to the map image file. So we're just gonna basically paste the name of the file there. All right, if we now actually render that, you'll see that the map, you'll see that the map is already in Leaflet. All right, for some people, that's actually enough. All right, but this one here is really important. All right, so the ID, and it's got a little comment here. Anything after these basically means it's a comment, must be unique with no spaces. So, Island of Screams. All right, now this is really important because if you've got two maps on two different notes with the same ID, they will share the same pins. Okay, so unless you want to basically do that, and I have seen some people that do want to do that, make sure they're unique. All right, so now we're basically inside of a leaflet. We can drag our map around. I'm just holding and dragging around to move my map. That's now working. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to remove the exclamation mark because I don't need two copies of the map on here. All right, that just gives me a link to my file effectively. All right, now the next step from here is basically where we need to start figuring out how big is my map. And the reason why I put the link in here is it's just so much easier for me to figure out the size of the map using the link. All right, because what I do is I right click and I can open in the default app, I can show in System Explorer, and these are both useful. In Windows 11, if I click open in default app, you can see I've got that set to the default Windows editor, and you can see down here we've actually got the dimensions of the file. There's plenty of other ways you can do this. If I go show in system navigation, I can right click on the file and go properties, and then I can have a look here at the details tab, and it actually has the width and height in pixels. All right, so that's the information that I'm looking for. You can do this in multiple different ways. All right, so I'm sure you can figure it out. But the important thing is what we're going to do is we're going to copy the details from here into our calculator. All right, so dimensions, the width is 5882. 5882. All right, and we're going to come out here and go 5888 for the height. All right, and you can see that as I've done that, the latitude and longitude has updated. All right, so what we do is we actually replicate that process. We go back to our source mode. All right, come back to our source mode, and you'll see here that in the bounds line, this is where we have to put the size of the map in height and width. Ignore the 0, 0. All right. And effectively what this is doing, so just so you understand it, the 0, 0 is one corner of the map, and the details we're putting in is the other corner. It's basically saying this is how big our map is. All right, so we come in here, we're going to put our height first. The height is 5888. And then in here, we're going to come in and put our width, which is 5882. All right, now, you'll see here the latitude and longitude updated. All right, so latitude is 2944. I come here and I put that in there. And then the longitude is 2941. And we come here and we put that in there. All right, that's basically set my map up now. Okay, it's now in Leaflet, or it's got the bounds set. And just so you understand what it's doing is the 0, 0 is one corner of the map. The height and width is the other corner of the map. And then the latitude and longitude is the half point of that. All right, so effectively what we're saying is the latitude and longitude is the middle of the map. Now that's kind of cool to understand, because just so you get it, if I press this target button, it goes back to the middle of the map. All right, the latitude and longitude can be changed if you like to adjust where that return point is. So if you are like focused over here in your campaign, you can actually figure out what the latitude and longitude is of this point here, and then you can basically use that as a central point to bounce back to if you want to change that number. All right, let's go back up though. We've got height and width. Height and width is very simply how much space it takes on the screen. That's it. So within your note, all right, I can do 100 pixels up and down. You can take up 50% of my width. You can use pixels or width for either of these values. All right, and ideally you're just basically saying this is how much space. Now I like to go with about 95%, all right? And the reason why I like to do that is when I'm scrolling down a really long note, I'm using my mouse wheel, okay, to scroll up and down my note. As you can see, that works really well until I hit Obsidian Leaflet, okay? So what I do is I set my width to about 95, sometimes 90, to give myself banners on the side of scroll area. All right, so I can scroll past my map, because as soon as your mouse comes into Obsidian Leaflet, the mouse scroll activity gets taken over by the plugin. Okay, so therefore to scroll successfully, you've got to be outside of it, and it just makes it nice and easier. And then as for how many pixels high you go, this is just self-preference, right? You're basically saying, I like this map to look like this in this note. You can set it however you like. All right, that's it. That one looks pretty good. It's taking up a nice chunk of space. I might even just go a little bit smaller, to be honest. Right, just that way it fits nicely on my screen, and I've still got access to everything on the sides. All right, so that's it. From here, we basically need to start setting our zoom levels. Now, the zoom levels is a really important thing to understand, is if you hold your mouse over the little target icon here, you will see the zoom level. All right, so at this level, I'm at minus 1.5. If I zoom in, I'm at 1. Okay, so in this case here, I actually want to be able to zoom out of the map and see the whole island. All right, so we're at minus 1.5. So what that means is I need to actually modify my min and max zooms. So if I come here to minus 5, what that will allow me to do is to zoom out to minus 5. If I zoom in to about there, that one is at minus 3. For me, that's a better point. All right, I'm basically going to put a restriction in that says I don't want this map to go further than minus 3. All right, because that way I can see the whole map. All right, but I'm not zooming uncontrollably down until like you can't see the map, because trust me, you can do that. You can zoom so far into a map or so far away from a map that you can't see the map, and that's obviously not useful. So I basically define that in the min zoom so that I basically there. And as you can see, controls how far away from the map you can zoom out. Hover on the target icon to see the current level. All right, so the instructions are actually in the template. Now, I want to basically control how far I can zoom in, and I think I had it set at at 1. And you know what? I quite like that. It lets me probably zoom in further than I ever would. I'd probably there is actually better. All right, so let's change that to 0. And now I've basically got a map that zooms in as far as I feel that would be useful. All right, and complete personal preference, guys. You can do whatever you like with this. Okay, so that's our zoom. And then the default zoom level. So when the map resets, what would you like to see? Now, for me, I reckon about that. All right, so we're going to go -3. There's my default zoom. All right, so this way, I click, I zoom in, and then I press my little, sorry, it scrolled out. I press my target icon, and it snaps back to that -3. All right, so that for me now is not a nice functional leaflet. All right, zoom delta. This is adjusting how much the zoom changes when you zoom in or out. All right, so we can actually change it to 2, for example, and then that way when we zoom, it snaps in a lot quicker. Okay, I like to set mine at 0.5 just so I can really step in and out to whatever I want. All right, there we go. That is now a almost perfectly usable map. All right. For a dungeon map, I would not go much further than that. Okay, there's really no need to go further because a dungeon basically presents information on a screen and you don't really need to measure anything. All right, and measuring is the one thing that we haven't set up yet. So, measuring. How do we do that though? Let's say we do have a regional map and we want to know how far is it from the church over to this city. All right, so we go, duh. I'm clicking with Alt, holding Alt and click. I'm still holding Alt, click, still holding Alt, click, still holding Alt, click, and then I'm at the town square. All right, so we can actually see that's 3 miles. Oh, it's actually, so there's a few there. So 4.3 miles plus 11.1 plus there. All right, and it basically adds it up as it goes. So you can basically use this to measure distance, and basically using some of the other calculators that we've presented through these tutorial videos. I've got a video on travel calculators. You can actually pump that into a calculator and you can figure out how long it's going to take your party to get from point A to point B, depending on the type of travel method. You know, slower with a donkey, faster with a dragon. So that's just some of the other cool stuff we're doing. That's a much more advanced topic. But understanding how to set up the actual ability to measure is important in this case. And this is probably the most complex part of setting up one of these. Now, just an important prereq. The scale at the bottom of the map is really quite a requirement for setting this step up. If you don't have a scale on a map, I recommend you create a scale, all right? Whether that's in your head, whether you want it to be from here to be here, be 5 miles or whatever, right? You need to create that yourself or have it on the map already. So for this step, what do we do? Well, this is why we've got this link here. I open it in System Explorer. All right, which shows me the map. And then in this case here, I'm going to actually open it with GIMP. GIMP is a free image editing tool. It's open source. It's very powerful. It's up there with PaintShop Pro, for example, but a hell of a lot cheaper, given it's free. And the important thing is that it actually has a tool for measuring distance. Okay, so the zoom tool in GIMP is up the top left here. All right, so you click that, or you can go to Tools and you can go down here to the Measure tool to enable this. And then what I'm doing is I'm holding my middle mouse button and I'm just moving the map around in order to see what I want to see. And usually you can scroll in to actually scroll into the map. Now, my video recording software is absolutely painful in this regards. And it actually takes over that ability. So I'm just going to have to do this the hard way. I'm actually just going to select an area and I'm just going to go zoom to the selection. All right, and what we're basically looking for is just the ability to see the scale. All right, that's all I've done is I've zoomed in on the scale. And then I'm going to click my measure tool and that's going to bring that up, and you can see here I can click, drag, I'm holding down the click here, and then click to the other end. All right, so down the bottom here, you can, as I do this, all right, you'll see the pixels down the very bottom as you basically go through and you do this. So you click, you drag, and you'd basically take note of how many pixels there are in there. So there's 1,861 pixels, 1,860, let's go, between 0 and 100. So 1,860. And then what I do is I go back to my note, proper note, and I basically put that in here, 1,860. All right, so how many pixels in the scale? All right, that's all it was. I'm basically using that. And then I look at my scale and go, all right, well, if there was 1,860 pixels between 0 and 100, this is how many units are in the scale. All right, there's 100 units in that scale. That gives me the scale number. Okay, I copy that. We click edit, and we just basically come here and we put that in here. We paste it. All right, we can now render that, and then we can basically go into Leaflet. All right, and what I like to do is basically just come in here and test this. All right, so I bring my scale up on my Leaflet map. I hold Alt, I click, and then I basically click back here. All right, and I just check, is that coming up right? All right, so it's coming in at 99.8, so my pixels are probably off by a tiny fraction of something. I don't care enough about that to fix, to be honest. That's perfect for me. And then what that allows me to do now, well, now I can go, well, from the church, hold Alt, click. We can now basically measure how long it's going to take us to get there. All right, so that's basically, now we have a fully functional measurable map. Okay, there is a couple of other settings here that we haven't touched on. So recenter false is just when you come back to the note if it's going to recenter or not. Dark mode, false or true. There is a dark mode. I don't know if it still works. I don't use it at all. Should probably just take it out of the template, to be honest. And then unit. Unit is probably the other one worth actually noticing, because when you see I did my measurement, all right, you see it's got MI on the end, so 55.9 miles. All right, you can write whatever you like here. All right, if you want to measure in lemons, you can measure in lemons. It's literally just a string where you write whatever you want. So I'm sure people out there can take this to the next level. You can put in whatever you want. I might just write miles, for example. And that way, we've got miles. All right, and that's basically it. All right, that's just that tiny little bit there. And what I would do then is I will then come in here and I will delete this because I no longer need it. You can also delete this from your properties if you want because you don't need it anymore. And now you have a map that's basically ready to start pinning. All right, so let's jump into what we can do with pins. Okay, so pins. The simplest form, we want to basically say, let's add a pin for this town. We right click and we add a pin. Now you're probably just going to see or you actually won't see anything, to be honest, because when you right click, it's just going to add a pin. And what it's doing is it's adding the default pin. Okay. The default pin is the first pin that's configured in the system. And you can see I've actually got a heap of custom stuff that I've basically set up. So you basically right click, you add the pin, and then you can right click that pin and go edit marker. All right, and this is where we can actually say, well, what sort of marker type it is. Again, you'll just see default. The note to open, we can just pick anything here. I can't even remember what's in here. Fred, it's Fred. Fred the second. I've always got a Fred. This is the description. All right, there is an advanced options here. All right, and this is where you can set the min zoom or the max zoom. All right, so we won't just bother with that for just now. Let's stay with the simple stuff. But this is the note to open. So Fred, I don't know why that didn't save. This is the description, and this is the marker type. So now when we hold that over, you can see we actually hover over and it shows Fred the second. We've got, this is the description, and it's actually got a link there that you can click if you want to actually see that. So that's it for how to basically add a pin to your map and how to link that pin to a note. However, you're probably going to want to go a bit further. If we go to settings, we come down here to Obsidian Leaflet. All right, we can actually change some of these settings. So, default marker tooltip behavior, I think that actually starts as never. I changed that to hover. New markers will be created by this setting by default. Something that I always forget is actually here under core plugins. And I see this question come up a few times where it says, Josh, you hover over your notes and it appears, why doesn't that work for me? Well, if you come over here to core plugins, there's actually the page preview core plugin. All right, so this is part of Obsidian. And you click the cog here and you'll see that there's actually different options here. And this affects all sorts of things at Obsidian. But basically, do you require control to trigger page preview on hover? All right, so if you tick one of these options, you actually have to hold control and hover your mouse over something for the preview pane to appear. If you turn this off, you just have to hover over it and it will appear. So you can see leaflet is listed here as an option, and you can see I've got that turned off. So what that means is when I hover my mouse, it's going to show me the preview pane. If I turn that on, I have to hold control and hit the preview pane. So just a heads up that that is there as well. You might want to go and change that setting for yourself. All right, you can turn things on or off here, but basically I skip most of this, to be honest, and I come down here to default map marker. I've just changed the color just to make mine pop. All right, that's it. You can change the icon that's been used here. So if I just cut this and go map, all right, you can change a map pin. All right, and that way when you come back to here, you'll see that all the pins have updated. On top of that, you can also come in here and you can basically add additional map markers. All right, so I added a shark before. If we get rid of that and I type here, and we're going to add the shark again. So we'll go shark. I'm going to put in the swim icon, swimmer. There we go. That looks terrible. Right, and that's the layer icon setting. I can actually adjust that so it either has the round pin around it or it doesn't. I'm going to turn that off because that just looks terrible. You can change the color, and obviously we probably don't want blue for a shark on the ocean. We might go red, all right, to say that it's actually a warning. Here we can set the min zoom or the max zoom levels. We'll go into that in a minute, and then you can associate a tag with it. Now, I see a lot of people with issues with scale of their icons that they're using, and a lot of them are coming here and actually trying to upload an image and upload their own personal ones. My personal recommendation is you ignore this section. It doesn't seem to function fantastically, if I'm honest. It seems to have a bit of a bug when it's scaled at different sizes. The image just doesn't tend to scale, and that annoys people. So my recommendation is you just use the built-in icons. Now, if we go back to community plugins and we go browse and we go leaflet and just have a look at the README file, you can actually come down here and have a look at the different options. And where are we? Got YAML, ignore all that, IDs, zoom levels, images, bounds, units, scales, markers, marker links. Oh, there's some stuff in here. And this is what I was saying at the start of the video, right? There's a lot of things that people just simply do not use in here. Marker tags, links, examples. Jesus. Marker icons. Here we go. At the bottom, the font awesome free icon name to use. That's the important bit. That's all I'm looking for. Font awesome free. If I click that and open up that website, font awesome free comes up. All right, and I can basically come in here and go, all right, what's the free and open source icons? These are the ones that Javelin has included. And you can basically come here and you can do a bit of a browse for all of these. So let's say you like the circle one, or let's go with the hippo. All right, you can see the code for that is hippo. All right, literally just hippo. So we can copy the name. And if we come back here, come to our Obsidian Leaflet settings, come down here to our new shark icon that I don't think we actually made. We can actually change the name. Oh, to hippo. All right. That way you can basically define your icons using that. Now, it doesn't have an icon for every situation. My advice is to you is to move on from that issue. Okay, they're free icons. There's plenty of them available. I'm sure you can find something that matches all the things that you want to do in some sort of way. Okay, yes, you can add your own, but as I said, most people who I've seen do that have experienced issues. So my recommendation is just to stick with the icons. They work really well, and then you can basically, you can add your different plugins. Mine's all not visible because of the zoom levels on those specific examples. Or is it just bugging? Oh, there's the region. Yeah, I've got zoom levels on those, so it's not basically visible. All right, well, let's jump into that, though. Let's jump into zoom levels. All right, so understanding that we basically set our zoom levels. So we got a -3, and we've got max zoom of 1. If we actually wanted to define an icon that was only visible at -1, 0 to -1, how would we do that? And let's just do this as a test. We're going to do a skull. Yeah, here we go, skull. We're going to basically set the color. We'll go black. We're going to turn off that. We're going to make the layer icon. Min zoom. So we're going to go 0, max zoom 1. And what this is saying is when we're at these zoom levels, then this icon is going to be visible. Outside of these zoom levels, you will not be able to see this new tag. So we click save to confirm our changes. We can now see our test one is in here, which means we can come back here and we can go test. All right, and we can't see it. And the reason why, if we hold everything here, is we're actually not within those bounds. Whoa. Here we go. We can actually see some of them starting to come back. Why is it not showing it? We're at -2. -1.5. There we go. I'm now within -0.5. Or this will be -1. Alright. I'm now at 0. I can't go any further. But if I come back, it's gone. Alright, it's because I'm at -1.5. Alright, so that's how that works. As you can see, that can be quite really handy for making those different levels of zoom that I showed you in my the start of my video at the other map that I use. All right, so you zoom in, you see heaps of detail. You zoom out, you reduce that level of detail. It takes a bit of planning to obviously get your icons right when you're doing it this way, and obviously you're hard coding these icons to a very specific zoom level, which might not work on all maps that you put in, but generally I don't find it to be too much of a problem. So anyway, that is basically Obsidian Leaflet. All right, at this point we've got a functional map. You can see I can hold my left mouse button, I can move it around, I can right click to add my pins. There is a bit more functionality in here. Just quickly, we can right click a pin and go convert to code block. All right, if we go into edit mode, you can see it's actually added, where did it go? Here it is. It's added a marker. It's added it on the wrong line, so just be aware of this. I see this sometimes. It's meant to be like that. So marker. It's got the positioning of it. And it's basically got some details on the description. So that is a possibility. I personally, I find I'm in two minds of this. Once you do it, you can't modify a marker that's been converted to text inside of your scale. So that can be a little bit problematic. So sometimes I prefer just have it basically where I'm just like, oh, this is a town, and then it stores it inside of the actual plugin. There we go. So yeah, there's that. You can see my zoom levels is playing with all sorts of things here. Like I'm expecting to see an icon, but I'm not seeing it because of my zoom levels. It's how I've got it set up. So yeah, you can basically convert to marker. There is also some drawing tools down here. All right, these can be a little bit of fun to play with sometimes, but they can actually be quite a pain, I find, if you get them in and you're like, oh, how do I get rid of it? All right, so here you can see I've basically set a little shape. All right. getting rid of that shape, by the way, which can be useful. You can't link the shape to anything, but it can be good to show some things. You can save your changes and then delete your marker as well. So if you click the delete, then click the shape, that gets rid of it. All right. So that's shapes. I use it a tiny little bit. I use it to show you guys that it's there. That's honestly the only thing. What's this one? This is show all markers, so that'll show all your markers. This one goes full screen mode. All right, and then obviously you got zoom in and you've got zoom out. So very basic. Down the bottom here, you've got your miles measurement. And then up here, we've got a few options. So we've got turn on different icons. All right. And we've also got a lock, unlock. Now that can be handy when it's locked, you can't move your pins. All right, that's what that's for. So you basically set your map up, you lock it, you're happy with it, you don't move on from there. Now, there is something else that's kind of worth showing you here. How am I going to do this? I'm going to show you this map. I'm going to bring in this one. I'm going to show you how to do multiple maps on top of each other. Alright, so multiple maps on top of each other is actually a lot easier than you would think, but it's probably designed for a specific situation. If we go edit, we go back to our source, and you've got this image line here, which tells us the map we're going to use. You can actually paste another one in here. Okay, so here I've got my Island of Screams, and then I've got my regional map. And if I come in here now, you'll see there's a new icon. When I hover my mouse over it, I get basically layer 1 or layer 2. Alright, and you can actually then start adding pins to here. Alright, and then when I come back to layer 1, those pins aren't there. Alright, so the pins are associated with the layer that they're on. Probably the best use case I've found for this is dungeons, right? Multi-level dungeons that are basically the same size, that stack on top of each other like levels. You can really use this to basically say, well, here's layer 1, here's layer 2, you're on level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I haven't tried it too deeply, but it's functionality that exists, right? You can see here, this map looks a little bit funny compared to this one. It's because it's sharing the same bounds, all right, the same size details that we put in for each map. And that's why I said it probably works better for maps that are the same size as each other, right? Designed to stack on top of each other. If you got like the world's largest dungeon, for example, and that's got the same size map for every layer of that dungeon, it's probably going to work really well to use these layers. And then you can have one master file. So there we go. Okay, so now that you've got your map into Obsidian, you've got it in your note, how do I use it at the table? All right, I thought it might be useful just to speak about this for a second. Basically, and this is my Pathfinder 2nd edition vault, so this is the one I'm actually running with at the table. What I tend to do is I've basically, I've got my adventures, and I've got those all into different folders and the like. I'm running Outlaws of Alkenstar currently. I think I've been running Punks in the Powder Keg. So I have like my module, right, that I'm running. Here we got Chapter 1, Reach for the Sky. And I've got the entire module there. And what I'll generally have, though, is within that module, you'll have a note that obviously represents the dungeon or whatever it is that you're running. Sometimes you might have multiple maps inside of a single area. And what I like to actually do is actually create an extra note. All right, you can put the note wherever you like, but I create an extra note for the maps that I'm actually playing with. And then what I do is I drag that map out into my tab up here. Okay, so that way I can come back to here and I can bring up Reach for the Sky. All right, and say that I'm running down here, all right, from this section, which is the Whaling Scrapyard. I keep this note in the middle, all right, but this note here, which I think it's this one here, I right click and pin so it stays there. And what that does is it allows any clicks in here to open up in here. Okay, so that's basically it. So what that means is I can now use this map as a navigation pane. Okay, So that basically as my party and they start at B1, they come here and I go, all right, this is what's happened. I read the read aloud. I work through this encounter for this section of the map. As they come up here, I'm like, okay, you go to B3, or they might go to B2. But this is a really easy navigation way for me to use, right? Instead of me going up and down manually through the map, or I mean, another way would be to minimize these, right? And just expands the one that you need. I just really like having this here. It gives me a visual sort of tool to obviously know the area and what it is that they're staring at. And it's very quick and easy for me to navigate to wherever they go to in order to figure out what they're actually going to be seeing and what they're going to encounter. So there you go. That's how I use the maps inside of Obsidian. It's simple, it's quick, it's easy. You don't have to have it there. You can drag it to other places. Okay, so there's lots and lots of different areas inside of Obsidian where you can actually anchor things. And I recommend that you basically just have a bit of a play. Right, drag them around until you find an area that you're happy with. But there you go. Just quickly, one thing Obsidian Leaflet is not, in my opinion, is a VTT. You'll notice that we just went through like how I use the map, and it was all about me, right? It was all about me as the dungeon master using the map as a navigation tool. All right, I am in no way playing the game on Leaflet. All right, I'm not going to share this note to another screen and have the players see the map. All right, now the reasoning for that is that it's just not designed for it, to be completely frank, right? It's designed as a pinned map tool. It's not designed to have tokens on it or combat management or line of sight or fog of war. All right, that's not the features or functionality of Obsidian Leaflet, and I don't think that's the intention of why it was ever created in the first place. Now, I have seen people who do this, right? They go and they share the note, right? Whether it's opening in a separate tab, for example. I think you can actually, I don't do it very often, but you can open these in a separate tab. I think you can actually just drag it out. There we go. You can just drag it out, right? And you could technically put that on a separate screen that the players could see. It's just not a good solution, if I'm completely honest, okay? And there's plenty of free virtual tabletop tools out there, okay? I personally use Foundry at my table, which is a separate tool. It's a once-off purchase. It's designed to be used as a virtual tabletop at the table, which means I can do fog of war control. I can move tokens around there if I want. I can roll dice in there if I want. But it's designed for that purpose, and therefore that's what I recommend, is you use an actual VTT, not Obsidian Leaflet for your players, okay? Obsidian Leaflet is designed as a navigation tool, a visual representation of what you're doing with your navigation and your information around it. It's really handy for you as the person running the game to actually be able to use that and navigate quickly, but it is not designed for your players, in my opinion. Alright, there we go, guys. That's been Obsidian Leaflet. Hopefully that's been super useful for some of you guys who are just getting into this initially to start off with. This is a long video, apologies, but as you can see, we've covered quite a little bit of content, and hopefully that just makes it a bit easier for you guys. If you are new to this community, please do make sure you come over here to obsidianttRPGtutorials.com, all right, and join the Obsidian official Discord. That is where 90% of our community is hiding, I would say. All right, there's a very active, supportive community in there who can help you with your questions if you're struggling in order to get along. Now, I want to say a special shout out and thanks to all of my patrons. I couldn't do this without their support. There's no way I would still be doing as many videos and as many tutorials as I am if it wasn't for those guys. If you would like to get a copy of my starter vault, you can subscribe to my Patreon. It's about size, it's actually cheaper than a coffee, to be honest, but it gets you access to the vault, which is all set up. It has the plugins, it has the templates, it has the themes, it has the settings. It's all set up and ready to go. So basically you can open it up and you can start tinkering in this vault and making it your own. Now, it's not a complete solution. I'll be completely in front with that, right? I'm not designing a world building tool or a dungeon mastering tool. I'm designing a vault that's got some shortcuts for you designed to help you learn quicker, okay? And for those people who really learn by doing, that's really what the vault is for. It's for those people so they can start hacking apart what I've already got and go, this is how that works. I think I could do it this way. And my intent is that you take that vault and you make it your own, All right, it's not a final solution, and I don't want it to be. But yeah, huge thanks to my patrons, because their support is absolutely incredible. And outside of that, guys, I want to say thank you for watching. Enjoy your day, and I will speak to you on the socials. Enjoy.